Welcome back, beautiful. You're exactly where you're meant to be. Take a breath with me and let it go. This is Moving Through Anxiety, the space where we get honest about what's underneath the overwhelm, where we soften into our bodies, and where we remember that peace isn't something we chase, it's something we come home to. I'm Catherine, coach, mom, and fellow human, learning how to feel it so I can free it. Whether you're walking, folding laundry, or hiding in the bathroom for just 5 minutes of quiet, you belong here. So today I am joined by someone whose work resonates on a cellular level, and we're not here for the surface, level tips. We're going beneath the noise into the spaces where anxiety hides and healing begins. So today I have the incredible Taylor Gendron. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. AKA Tay, the Anxiety Nutritionist. And she is a holistic nutritionist and gut and hormonal health educator who helps women break up with anxiety without medication. And after overcoming her own struggles with anxiety, panic, and depression, she now helps women get to the root causes of their anxiety by addressing gut health, hormones, blood sugar, nutrition, and sustainable daily habits. And her mission is to help women stop managing symptoms and start living fully. So you're about to get some game-changing clarity on the food mood connection. So let's go ahead and dive in. And Tay, just thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited about this episode and just having a conversation with you and you being able to share your journey and wisdom with some more people.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. All right. So let's go ahead and just start with what led you to become the anxiety nutritionist. Like, was there a personal turning point that made this work feel deeply important to you?
Yes. So it's funny because I never even knew being a nutritionist, which was a career option. Like I didn't even know about that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
When I think back to in high school when it's like all the things you can be, it's like doctor, lawyer, nutritionist wasn't even one of them. So I was actually in my undergraduate with the intention and plan of becoming a lawyer. It was all mapped out. My best friend and I were going to go to law school in London, England, which she did do, and she is a lawyer in London.
Awesome.
And that was like our plan. And then in my second or third year, I don't know, sometime in my undergrad, it's all a blur now. After two kind of traumas, one happened in second year, and then I think the other one was third year, but not that it matters because that was a very long time ago, but two kind of really big things happened in my life. And then shortly afterwards, I started to experience anxiety and panic. And I think, as anyone does who experiences a panic attack for the first time, you literally think you're dying. You think you're
Hmm.
you're having a heart attack because nobody
Yeah.
tells you, "Hey, you might
Right.
at some point in your life have a panic attack, and this is what it feels like. Don't worry,"
Yeah.
so I was away. I was in university, and so I put myself in a cab by myself and took myself to the hospital and
Wow.
basically was like, I'm having a heart attack. Like my arm was numb, the tingling, you can't breathe, right? And they, did all the tests and they said, no, like that wasn't, you're fine.
Mhm.
It was probably a panic attack. Like, do you have anxiety? And that was the first time anyone had ever, I don't think I had heard the word anxiety before. I mean, I'm 35 now. I'll be 35 in a few months. I was 21. So this
Wow.
was a long time ago.
Hmm.
And I don't think I knew what anxiety was. I knew about depression because I had several family members who had depression. They were on medication. It was somewhat talked about in the
Hmm.
family, kind of. And so
Yeah.
I knew about depression. I knew about OCD. Again, a family member had that diagnosis, but nobody had ever said anything about anxiety. And nowadays it's kind of thrown around a lot. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, that makes me so anxious, or that makes my anxiety worse, or whatever. It wasn't like that like 15 years ago, I
Right.
don't think,
No, it wasn't.
I don't remember people saying like anxiety or that makes me anxious or anything like that. So genuinely, I was like perplexed in the hospital. I was like, I don't have that. Like, I
Right.
don't even know what that is, and sure enough, I got it. I developed it. Like I had it. And so I went to my family doctor and he put me on medication and I went to therapists and they had me doing CBT.
Mhm.
And over the course of 4 years, it just got worse. So the anxiety was daily. I was having multiple panic attacks a week. I eventually became clinically depressed. And so I had another diagnosis, another label. I was on Prozac, I was on Ativan. And I just was getting worse and I wasn't getting better. I was going to therapy every 2 weeks. And I
Mhm.
genuinely just thought, this is going to be me for the rest of my life. Like,
Right.
I'm never going to get out of this. I'm just going to have to do this forever. And
Mhm.
then by just, I don't even know how it happened, I ended up getting in with a psychiatrist, which in Canada, where I am, the waiting lists are very long. They're like
Oh,
two
wow.
years.
Oh,
So,
goodness.
yeah, I put myself on a bunch of waiting lists and I managed to get in to one. And he was very old. He was like in his 70s and he was about to retire. And so he was slowly reducing his
Mm.
practice. And he was only taking on people that he considered not to be severe enough cases where if he turned around one day and was like, I'm
Mm.
done,
Mhm.
they would be okay.
Mhm.
Right. So luckily, I fell into that category.
Nice.
And so he took me on. He was also working with a friend of mine. And so that's kind of how I weaseled in,
Oh,
like
good.
through a referral to from her. And in my very first session, he was basically like, you don't need to be on medication. This is clearly not working for you. Like, you've tried four different types of SSRIs. You're now on the highest daily dose of Prozac. You're abusing your Ativan prescription. Like, how has nobody figured this out?
Oh,
Like,
wow.
he's like, I really don't think that like medication's helping you.
Mhm.
And that was very surprising to me because in 4 years, having gone through the system for
Yeah.
mental health, nobody had ever said that maybe medication wasn't an option,
Right.
and that
Yeah.
there were other ways, kind of. And so he basically said, I've been doing this a really long time, and most people don't need to be medicated. He's like, definitely some situations, yes, but
Mhm.
he's like, I don't see that as like being the case for you. Like, are you in a bad place with your mental health? Yes. But he's like, you're also not doing a lot of foundational things that set you up
Mhm.
for strong mental health. And he's like, you need to look at your diet, you need to look at your gut health, like, you need to look at your lifestyle, you need to look at your environment. And he was the first person to ever say that to me. Like, no one
Wow.
has said that to me.
Yeah.
And so he was like, I can't tell you what to do when it comes to diet and lifestyle and hormones because that's not my training.
Right.
But he was like, I have worked with so many people who have just completely changed their lives and are doing amazing and they're not on medication because they've done these things. So
Mm.
he basically like pointed me in that direction, but he
Uh-huh.
wasn't able to actually support me with that.
Right.
So I continued to work with him for like the, therapy kind of side of things. But then I was
Okay.
just like a woman on a mission. I was like,
Love
and
it.
this was before the days of Instagram was around, but it was just people sharing like pictures of themselves and their friends.
Right.
This was before the days of like you could find information on
Right.
Instagram.
Yeah.
I didn't even think to go to Google. I walked myself out of his office to the bookstore.
Nice.
And I went to the bookstore
Yeah.
and I looked up books on clean eating because I was like,
Uh,
this seems like a good place to start. And
yeah.
I bought like a bunch of books on clean eating, and a book on gut health, and which there weren't that many. And I just kind of got to work and I kind of dabbled around for a while and started to transition off my medication with his support. And I got marginally better, but I wasn't
Mhm.
like 100% better. And all of my Googling eventually led me to the Institute of Holistic Nutrition, where I went in 2015. And that is what completely changed my life.
Wow.
And I now have no anxiety disorder, no panic disorder, no depression. I'm on no medication. A bunch of other symptoms I had my whole life that I don't have anymore, like seasonal allergies
Oh,
and things
yeah.
like that. Um, and in the process of going through school and just realizing how amazing I felt, that was when I decided to become a nutritionist. And that's when I
Okay.
decided to work with women with anxiety. But if that had not happened to me, I would probably be a lawyer right now.
Right. That's so crazy. Such a shift in trajectory there. I love it. And I just
Yeah,
absolutely love your story. I also started school to be a lawyer and didn't end up there. So I think that's hilarious too. But
like I feel like that's just a thing, you know? And I want to say like Legally Blonde had an influence on me. I still love that movie. You
yeah,
know, like if somebody tells me I can't do something, I become Elle Woods.
yeah, I
Like
love it.
watch me. Um, but yeah, no, I even, but I think it was pre Legally Blonde because my parents said even when I was younger, like I
Really.
told them I was going to be a lawyer. Like I
Yeah.
always said I was going to be a lawyer. And now I can't even imagine myself as a lawyer. Like
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
think
I
I'd
feel
be
that.
happy. I
Yeah.
know I would not be happy.
No, I totally get that. Yeah, but aside from that, I just love, thank you so much for sharing, your journey and how you got
hmm
here, because it's so important. So, I started out as a mental health counselor, or a therapist, and doing the CBT with people, transitioning over to the anxiety coach side. And we've got to get the physical foundation first, right? So we've got to get right with our exercise and with the food and what we're putting in our body before we can tackle the mental health. Otherwise, we're just wasting time and we're spinning our wheels. Um,
hmm
so I just love that we connected in another business group and,
Yes. I know. I
able
was like,
to,
this girl does anxiety. I'm gonna message her.
yes, I love it so much. So appreciate that. Because yeah, it's such a piece that we're missing, especially here. I know you're up in Canada and I'm here in America, and we're definitely missing it here in our healthcare system. And
Yeah,
that's one of
same.
the things you told me too, that, doctors, especially in America, they're not going to go that route. They're going to prescribe the medication first. And it's just so disheartening. So I just love that you're out there sharing this information so that other women can get it and they don't stay stuck on medication for decades that they don't need and that also create other symptoms or can make anxiety and depression worse.
And that's maybe not working.
Right.
And then they just feel even more beaten down and broken and like
Hmm.
something is absolutely wrong with them if medication isn't working that is quote unquote supposed to work.
Right. Yes, so true. So when you think back to your own struggles with anxiety, what did you wish someone had told you sooner?
I wish someone had told me sooner about good health and diet and hormones. I would have saved myself a lot of struggle and pain in those 4 years, you know? I was very in the dark. Like there was nobody in my life who was also experiencing anxiety, at least not that I knew of.
Yeah.
There was no one to talk to about it. Like I was in university and I was living in a house with five other girlfriends, so there was six of us. And so it's not that they were completely in the dark. Like I was able to open up to them a little bit, but it's not the same if someone doesn't turn around and be like, "Oh my gosh, me too," you know?
Yeah.
Like so I just felt very alone. Um and had absolutely no community of people who understood.
Mm.
I also felt very like ashamed. I didn't like want people to know because I thought if people at work knew, then it would make me seem like not as reliable or not as good as like a work coworker or like,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
I was working a few days a week at a bar. I was serving, so it wasn't like a full-time job or anything like that. But I didn't want to like lose the good shifts because people
Right.
were just like, oh, like you know, this girl has anxiety. What if she freaks out in the middle of a shift or something? Like the things that
Right.
we like tell ourselves, right? So, I mean, yeah, I think I wish that I had been told. I just think about, I don't regret anything and everything happened the way it happened to get me to where
Right.
I am. But imagine if from that very first panic attack, like I had been told, you know, not you have anxiety, you have an
Hmm.
anxiety disorder, but like, oh, like this is a symptom, you know, you're exhibiting symptoms of anxiety or
Hmm.
panic disorder. And not that I have the expectation of doctors to all of a sudden just flip a switch and go in the completely opposite direction of their education and be like,
Right.
what's your diet like? What are your other symptoms like? Like, how's your sleep? You know,
Hmm.
because that's not their training, and they are
Right.
trained for certain things. But what would be great is if they were like, hey, here's a nutritionist.
Hmm.
Call the nutritionist or a
Right.
naturopathic doctor or something,
Hmm.
and they can do an assessment on you because these symptoms are often correlated to diet and lifestyle and gut health and hormones. And so,
Hmm.
like, they can do an assessment, instead of it being like, here's meds and you should go to therapy. And it's great that they even recommended therapy,
Right.
right?
That's true. Hmm.
Because if we think about decades and decades ago, therapists were the quacks,
Hmm.
and like now I'm the quack. So hopefully we'll get there. But it would just be really nice if it was like more accepted within the medical community to be like, okay, I do medication, I do surgery, go see a nutritionist because there's a lot going on here, kind of thing. So just imagine what it would have been like if from the jump I had been told to look at those things, or I
Right.
had been even just told that was an option and I could have gone to a professional in the space like me now who could have
Hmm.
done an assessment on me and been like, hey, you are like not eating enough protein.
Yeah.
You are not eating enough fiber, you know? Like just like all these things that I know now that I wasn't doing. And I genuinely believed at the time that the reason I was struggling with so much with my mental health was because of those two big things that had happened. And that's
Oh,
kind of what we
wow.
were going about in therapy. And but
Hmm.
then years went by and it's like I'm not still focused on these things,
Right.
right? Like of course they have a lasting impact on your life as all trauma does. But like it wasn't like I was like 4 years later still thinking about it every day or
Hmm.
fixated on it and stuff. So it's like, well, why am I still unwell?
Yeah, absolutely. So, can you explain the gut-brain connection in a way that makes sense for women who are feeling anxious while also juggling a million things?
Yes. A very complex topic that I will try to distill down. But one of my favorite ways to explain it is like when everyone thinks about gut health, they think about like probiotics.
Mm.
And because that's kind of like the popular supplement, well, one of the popular supplements right now. It has been for a very long time. And probiotics are essentially only targeting your large intestine, but your entire gut is more than your large intestine. It's
Mhm.
your stomach, it's your liver, it's your small intestine, it's many other things as well. It's your
Right.
esophagus. Like, we're not going to go through the entire digestive funnel right now, because that's a 2 year education right there. But I like to pick out those four pieces of the digestive funnel, those four organs. So your stomach, your liver, your small intestine, and your large intestine. And just kind of explain how these four different organs all play a role in our mental health, but play a role in our neurotransmitter production, play a
Mm.
role in our hormonal balance, which ultimately is going to play a role in our mental health. So if we
Mhm.
start with our stomach, a lot of people have low stomach acid and they don't realize it. They have low stomach acid because they have a diet that is higher in like refined dairy products or just like dairy products, refined foods, processed foods, fast foods, anything like that's not a whole food. If your diet is primarily not those whole foods and more processed foods, which is very easy, very convenient,
Mm.
it does make up a large portion of a lot of people's diets. If their diet is low in salt, if they're not drinking enough water, which almost everybody I work with is not drinking enough water in the beginning.
Oh, wow.
Um, Overuse of medications like antacids because maybe they
Mhm.
have heartburn or acid reflux or something, which is actually more often than not a symptom of low stomach acid, not high stomach acid.
Oh, interesting.
Um, yeah. So then they're taking these antacids, which is suppressing stomach acid even more. Stress.
Mhm.
So mental stress, emotional stress. The realm that I really work in is physical stress because like anything that's going on in the body in terms of a body-based imbalance is a physical stressor.
Mhm.
But then we also have mental and emotional stressors, of course. And anyone who has an anxiety disorder is living in a state of stress. Their body is in a state of stress. Their nervous system is in a state of stress.
Mhm.
And so that's going to suppress stomach acid even more. It's very common in children if they eat a little too much junk food, um, or maybe they're living in um, a home environment that's difficult, or
Mm-hmm.
there's some trauma or stuff like that, that can suppress stomach acid. And so it's entirely possible that someone has suppressed stomach acid from childhood.
Oh.
And they're not being told this because this isn't something that a medical doctor is trained in, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
they're just kind of going through their lives with low stomach acid. And then that's creating not just digestive symptoms like gas, bloating, heartburn, like nausea, constipation, like anything that you think of as like, okay, this is a symptom of my gut. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of gut health symptoms that have they don't feel like gut health symptoms. There's gut health symptoms that are entirely mental. So somebody could have zero like gas or bloating or nausea or constipation or diarrhea or anything you label as a gut health symptom, the average person, they can have none of that and they can just have a hormonal imbalance and that's connected to the gut,
Okay.
or mental health and that's connected to the gut.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have low stomach acid, then you have poor absorption of the protein that you're eating, the amino acids that you're eating, which goes on to build
Okay.
neurotransmitters
Right.
and hormones, and you have poor absorption of key minerals like calcium, magnesium, iron, potassium, zinc, because your gut is not just this like random thing that's like here to help you chew and swallow your food and then
Mm.
like poop it out, right? Your gut
Right.
is how you are actually assimilating
Mm-hmm.
all the nutrients from the food that you're eating.
Okay.
So if your gut is not it's not functioning properly, or you have low stomach acid, or your liver needs support, or there's inflammation in the small intestine, or there's gut dysbiosis, which is happening in the large intestine.
Mm.
If any of that's going on, that's going to impact the assimilation of these nutrients. So we are not what we eat, we are what we digest, absorb, assimilate, and then excrete. And
Mm-hmm.
so the stomach, it acts as like this factory chain, right? And if you think about like a toy going over like a conveyor belt being built along the way, if
Mm-hmm.
there's one or two pieces of the conveyor belt that like isn't working, then the toy is going to come out at the end and it's not going to be fully built,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's the same thing
Right.
that's happening in your gut, except your gut is breaking things down.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if there's a part of the digestive funnel where this breakdown and absorption and assimilation isn't happening, then you're not going to have the end product. And what's the end product? If we're specifically talking about mental health, your neurotransmitters and your hormones.
Mm. And the hormones are so important for women, especially to just,
Yes.
I don't know how
Yeah.
you want to say it, like have under control or whatever. I don't know how you phrase it.
Yeah. I mean, our hormones are chemical messengers. And so their job is to go around the body and deliver a message.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't just randomly malfunction. Like
Right.
your hormones don't just wake up one day and be like, I don't want to do my job today. I
Not
don't
today.
feel like, no. They are being given a signal by another part of the body that is dysregulating them. So
Mm-hmm.
we love to blame our hormones, and it's not our fault. I think like doctors blame our hormones, and so we just grow up
Mm-hmm.
as women like, oh, you have like horrible PMS. Well, welcome to being a woman. Like,
Yes.
oh, you have postpartum. That's just part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're having a shitty perimenopause. That's just part of it. Like, that's just how it goes.
Yep.
That's just what it's like to be a woman.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we're constantly being told. And not only by our doctors, but by our friends and family and the other women in our life who are
Mm-hmm.
experiencing all these common but not normal symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And so it becomes normalized. And we all just think these are just parts of being a woman, but these are actually just imbalances within the body. PMS is not normal. Having a really shitty perimenopause with all these really shitty, uncomfortable symptoms is not normal.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much that we can do to support the body to not have these symptoms.
It's just so frustrating that we have normalized so many of this. Like I've been working with women for the last couple of years after my own journey of trying to figure out the the root cause of my endometriosis and getting that taken care of for myself. And so that brought me on my own little rabbit hole of Yeah, these things
Hmm.
aren't normal, you know, like
Hmm.
the PMS symptoms aren't normal, and that is a hormonal imbalance. And you don't have to live life that way. And you don't have to just medicate it with Tylenol or whatever else they tell you to do and things like that, depending on what
Hmm.
your specific symptoms are. But
For sure. And if we're talking about hormones, you can't talk about hormonal health without the liver. And where does the liver live? It's in your digestive funnel. It's a detox organ as well. So we
hmm
have like, our digestive funnel, and then we also have a detox funnel as well. And the liver is in both. The liver does a lot. It does more at this point, but 565 things that we know of
wow, that's
roles
a lot.
within the body. And that's just what we know of. And we don't know everything
Right.
when it comes to the human body and when it comes to science. Like we actually we don't know everything. And so 565 was the number I knew when I was in school. And that was like 10 years ago. So it's quite possible that that number has even gone up and we have learned of more roles that the liver plays. And some of these roles are this is how we absorb fatty acids, so the fats that we eat. This is also how we absorb the fat soluble vitamins like vitamin D, which
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows how important vitamin D now is for mental
Right.
health. And so if we have low vitamin D, yeah, could it be where you live? For sure. Could it be that it's wintertime? For sure. Could it be that you need supplementation? For sure. But also, just because you supplement with something doesn't mean that you actually get it because all supplementation has to go through the digestive funnel as well.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're getting something intravenously, like right up into the
Mm.
veins, into the
Right.
bloodstream, then it can't bypass digestion. Anything that goes in our mouth has to go through digestion,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we're not actually going to absorb all of that vitamin D supplementation. There's probably people listening who are like, man, I've been supplementing with vitamin D and my numbers aren't going up on my blood work,
Yes.
right? And so I'd be curious, well, what's going on with the liver, right? So anyone with any kind of hormonal imbalance, even if it's in like any phase of your life, like perimenopause or anything like that, you have to be looking at the liver. If you're suffering with PMS, any hormonal condition, you need to be looking at the liver. Nausea, which is a big one for a lot of people with anxiety, is they often can feel nauseous as a symptom.
Mm-hmm.
That's also a symptom of like an overworked, sluggish liver. Headaches, that's a really big one. A lot of
Oh,
women,
interesting.
my mother-in-law, my mother, like their whole lives, it's just been like migraines and headaches, and I have to take a day off work and I have to do this,
Yeah.
and it's also very normalized.
Mm-hmm.
They've never thought to be like, why am I getting these headaches? It's always
Right.
just been like, oh, I get these headaches. My doctor gave me these pills. When it's really bad, I take the day off,
Mm-hmm.
right? Again, something else that's super normalized. Um, and again, because if we're not getting that absorption of these key nutrients in the liver that's happening with the liver, then we're also going to have a mineral deficiency that's going to go on to impact our neurotransmitter production as well, because our body can build us all the serotonin we need, and it can build us all the GABA we need, which is the anti-anxiety
Mm-hmm.
neurotransmitter. It can do all of that. But if we're not giving it the building blocks it needs, aka the diet, the food that we're eating, and B, if something's happening in the digestive funnel where this breakdown and this assimilation and this absorption isn't happening, then our body can't build the neurotransmitter. And it's not
Right.
the body, it's not like the body's fault,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's just a lack of education. It's not our fault either because like we don't know what we don't know, which is
Yes.
why podcasts are so amazing because you can just go for a walk, go for a
Yes.
drive and listen to something like this and be like, "Oh my gosh. Okay, my stomach, my liver, my small intestine, my large intestine, my diet, these all play a role in my mental health.
Mhm.
Okay, let me go down the rabbit hole. How do I support these things?
Yes, absolutely. So on the topic of how do how can listeners support these things? So how do you help clients tune into what their body is asking for, especially when anxiety makes it hard to hear intuition?
Hmm. So I'm reading their symptoms primarily. I can look at blood work. There are certain tests that I can run in practice for sure. It's not my first go-to because the best information that we have is our symptoms.
Okay.
And things are going to show up, symptoms are going to show up before dysregulation shows up on like blood work, for example,
Okay.
and stuff like that. And so I'm in helping them. Symptoms are the language of the body, right? The body can't
Hmm.
speak in English. We're talking English right now. The body can't
Right.
do that. So if the body needs support, it's going to talk to you in the only way it knows how, and that's a symptom. So it's going to send you all these symptoms, and I'm trained to read and understand all the symptoms, right? And so I can look at a collection of symptoms and I don't go, oh, that's an anxiety disorder. I
Right.
go, oh, you have inflammation. Your liver needs support. What's your diet like? Okay, you're not eating enough protein and fiber and total calories. What's your like day-to-day life? Like, walk me through a day from wake up to go to bed. Okay, so you're not really moving your body. You're at a desk, you're driving,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, what's your sleep like? Like, in asking all these questions about not only doing like detailed kind of symptom analysis, but also just being like, walk me through a 3-day diet diary.
Hmm.
Walk me through a week in your life. You know, that gives me so many clues that I'm able to put that all together and be like, okay, this is why you're experiencing anxiety. And sometimes, a lot of the time, part of that is, yes, there is a mental emotional component where therapy is absolutely so beautiful and necessary for. And
Right.
therapy is a big part of my story too. I'm not saying like, do what I
Hmm.
do and don't do therapy, you know? Like,
Right.
I've been in therapy since 2011. It didn't really work for me until like 2014.
Right.
But my therapist that I'm with now, because that guy did eventually retire, um, and may have passed on. I don't know if he's still
Yeah.
with us on this earth. But my current therapist I've been with since 2016. And I literally emailed her today to book a session. You know, like I
Hmm.
book a session as things come up,
Yeah.
which they do.
Right.
Such is life, right? And so I'm not a one-stop shop. No one is going to be a one-stop shop. And this is why, like, you and I
Hmm.
collaborate on things too, right? Like, because it's like
Right.
we can give you pieces of the puzzle, but when it comes to mental health, there's going to be like multiple practitioners or multiple modalities that you're
Hmm.
going to want to dip into. And so I do a lot of, mindset work, and I'm a yoga and meditation teacher. So I bring that into my practice as well. But I'm not a therapist. And there are definitely pieces of anxiety that therapy helps with massively. And so I know that's probably not the most helpful answer to be like, well, how do you help clients? And it's like, well, it's client by client, you know? I
Right.
really have to like understand them and understand their life. But what I will say is having been doing this for almost 10 years now and having worked with hundreds and hundreds and like hundreds of women,
Hmm.
there are common themes.
Hmm.
And there are common
Yeah.
patterns which you see in your work as well.
Right.
When you start to see such a large number of, women in my case that are affected with the same symptoms
Hmm.
and conditions and diagnoses, yes, everyone is unique and there's certain nuances to every single woman, but there's also key things that you see
Yes.
again and again and again and again. And so those things that I see are I've said it so many times now, but in case you didn't know, not eating enough protein. um, Not eating enough protein, not eating enough fiber. It depends. There are definitely women who start with me who their fiber is on point, and
Okay.
others who it's like they're not eating enough fiber. I have yet to date worked with someone who is eating enough protein.
Oh, interesting.
So that
Okay.
is a huge one that I see. Not eating enough fiber, not drinking enough water. That's a big one I see as well. Under eating, which thank you, diet industry, has done us
Mm-hmm.
dirty,
Hmm.
especially as women. So it's like we got to eat less and move more and shrink ourselves, right? So not eating enough calories is a really big one that I see. Um, the movement, I see two things. I either see not moving enough or moving way too
Yeah,
much.
I see that too.
And if you're already in like a sympathetic state almost every single day with anxiety, like I was, because I had
Hmm.
it every single day, and I was exercising like a maniac, like boot camp and running and
Um,
spin, and like I did something every day
yeah.
like this like psychotic little Energizer bunny. I was also in my early 20s, but when I think back now at how much I exercised, I'm like, I was keeping myself stuck in a sympathetic state. But I didn't know that because I just thought exercise was good.
Hmm.
And the more you
Right.
exercise, the better. Nobody
Right.
told me, like, hey, you could actually be exercising too much, you know?
Right.
We're gonna pull it
Right.
back a little bit.
Right. That's not
So
talked
I
about.
see two extremes when it
Yeah.
comes to exercise. Sleep, sleep
Mm-hmm.
quality. Um, for some people, it's that they cannot sleep. That is one of their symptoms. They
Hmm.
struggle to fall asleep or they struggle to stay asleep. They're waking up multiple times in the middle of the night. So, in that situation, that is a symptom that can be addressed through the diet, the lifestyle, the gut health, the hormones, all of those things. But there's also some people who are just not prioritizing their sleep
Yeah.
and they're staying up late, watching
Hmm.
TV on their phone. Um, so that is an area of opportunity as well. Um, and dialing in on like a daily stress management practice. A lot of the women that I work with only do the stress management as needed
Oh, yep.
instead of as a daily practice, like a
Hmm.
hygiene practice, like brushing
Right.
your teeth,
Yes.
right? So those are the big commonalities I would say I see like again and again and again and again.
Hmm.
So, um, for anyone listening who's like, well, I can't work with somebody who's going to do this symptom analysis with me and this full intake, then I just say, start with those things and you will notice such a profound difference.
That's so interesting. So I'd like to circle back to the protein because I'm thinking back to my diet. And so I'm curious, do you think it's like a lack of protein intake or a lack of quality protein?
That's a good question because when we're talking about eating enough protein, what we're actually talking about is eating enough of the right amino acids.
Right.
And so I say animal protein a lot when I'm talking very generically online because
Okay.
animal protein is the exact blend of amino acids. And
Okay.
plant protein is incomplete. And so you have to match your plant proteins to make sure that you're getting the complete protein, right? And
Okay.
so for people who are not consuming a lot of animal protein, that I would say it's both. It's they're probably not getting enough protein and they're probably not getting enough quality protein.
Hmm.
Can they do it? For sure, but they have to really understand amino acid profiles, make sure they're matching things properly, and making sure that they're getting the right blend. Usually, a supplementation would be good for them, like an amino acid blend supplementation, a protein powder. If you buy a plant-based protein powder, it is going to
Mm-hmm.
give you like the profile of amino acids and stuff because it is a processed food. I'm not
Hmm.
saying it's bad. I use protein powder,
Hmm.
but it is a processed food,
Right.
right? So
Right.
they are processing it and blending it and trying to create the right amino acid profile. For people who are eating a lot of animal protein, they probably are getting the right quality of animal protein, of the right quality of protein.
Okay. All right. Well, very interesting.
Mhm.
Um, well, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much. So where can listeners go to connect with you and learn more or get support if they want from you?
Yeah, so go to my website, www.taygendron.com, and then there's like a little freebies section, which I think I sent you, and you're gonna link it
Yes.
up in the show notes. And
Yep.
from there, I have like a 5-day workshop. I have my weekly email newsletter, which is the best place to be because
Perfect.
I actually do that every week. I also have my own podcast, but it is not weekly. It's
Okay.
kind of like as I can.
Yes.
There's a lot of episodes, and it's usually at least once or twice a month. But I have my own podcast, the Breaking Up with Anxiety podcast. I have my Instagram, at tay.gendro. It'll all be linked up in the show notes. But yeah, Instagram and my weekly newsletter are like if you want to hear from me the most,
Okay.
the
Excellent.
most consistently.
Yes. Yeah. And you have that Sunday reset, which is a fabulous newsletter, which I think I
Yes.
saw on your freebie list as well. So that's
Yeah.
excellent. And I just love your program name and your podcast name, Breaking Up with Anxiety. Because one of the things I walk my clients through is first creating a relationship with the anxiety. Like, okay, we're going to ask you questions. Like, what are you here to tell me? Like, what do you need from me? And then basically, okay, we're going to let you go now. Like, we're going to break up with you. But I don't phrase it that way. But I just absolutely love that. And I think in a perfect world, if people were struggling with their diet or had any questions like, is this my starting point? I often send them to your podcast first because, or in a perfect world, I would send them there first. But I do send clients, shifting gears here, clients to your podcast, because you've got a great, uh, I forgot what it's called now, but your 5-part series. Maybe it
Oh
is.
yeah, the real root causes of anxiety.
Yes,
That's a
thank
really
you.
good place to start. Yeah, because even talking
Yes,
about gut health today, we talked about like two of the parts because
right,
obviously we're short on time.
right, right.
So I have spoken about gut health in pretty much every episode. But yeah, the real root causes of anxiety is a really good place to start the 5-part series.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I've often sent people there and it's like, okay, once you've done those, then, let's talk through those and then we can dig
Yes.
deeper from there. So I love that you've got that right there on your podcast. And it shares so much, like even beyond what you would imagine. Like you dive into so many different avenues where anxiety can show up. So I just absolutely love it. So okay, before we go today, again, this has been fabulous, but I know you're newly pregnant with your first child, but
Yes. Well, I'm almost 21 weeks, so
well,
is that still new?
I don't know. Let's go with it.
It's a
Maybe
little
halfway.
bit over halfway there, but let
Halfway,
me tell
okay.
you, this has been the longest 21 weeks of my life.
I believe that. But would you like to share a mom truth of the week with listeners today?
Oh, I think one of the things that took me by surprise being pregnant was I'm really struggling more with the body changes than I thought I would.
Yeah.
Like, I really didn't think I would because intellectually, I understand that it's part of the process.
Hmm.
And where you're literally stretching and growing and like
Yeah.
growing a human being. And it is the craziest thing ever. But knowing something intellectually and like mentally understanding something is different than living it.
Yes.
And I have really been struggling a lot more than I thought I would with the body changes. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like everything I put on, I'm just like, I hate this. Like, why don't I look like those cute pregnant girls on
Hmm.
Instagram?
Right.
Right? And so
Yeah,
I'm sure that I'm not the only one to feel that way. And so I really just wanted to like
absolutely.
voice that, especially as a nutritionist, like, um, and somebody who understands the science behind it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, part of me is like, it's fine because I know eventually, I don't believe in bouncing back because you're forever changed, but I will get back to the body that I worked so hard for before
Right.
getting pregnant, right? Because I know what to do. But I have my moments where I'm just like, this is a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a
So
lot of changes,
it's a lot of
physically,
changes.
mentally, emotionally.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know it's just something to continue to navigate. It's like this ultimate process of like surrender,
Yes.
just surrendering to the process.
Hmm.
Um, which even as a yogi and someone who practices non-attachment and surrender, I have been caught off guard, I
Mm,
think, by how much I've been struggling with it. So I
yeah.
just wanted to voice that in case anyone else has ever felt that way or
Yes,
is
absolutely.
feeling that way currently.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. And just meeting yourself with grace and self-compassion too,
Yeah.
and coming back to love as easily as possible, always aligning with love. Well, thank you again so much for sharing your wisdom, and reminding us or just, sharing that information if they didn't know about the gut-brain connection and how important it is to get right with the quality of food that we're eating. Um, so if you love this conversation too, be sure to connect with Tay. Again, all of her links will be in the show notes so that you have access to them, her website, as well as her Instagram handle and things like that. I just love everything that you share on Instagram too. I was going to mention it earlier, but you also share a bunch of um, meals. Couldn't come up with the word for some
Hmm.
reason, but the meals that you're eating and how much you do share a lot about the protein and how much protein
Uh,
is in each of them.
yeah. I always try to remember because I know someone's going to be like, "How much protein is in
Yeah.
that?" Because I talk about protein all the time. So
Right.
I counted it the other day actually because I had to start a new story bubble, like a highlight. And so I have 10 now. And so I Googled how many stories can you save in a highlight, and it said 100. So that
Oh
means I
my,
have
wow.
900 pictures of what I eat.
That is
So if you
so much.
want
I
like an
can't even fathom.
exact, right? Like, because I've been saving them for years. So if you
Yeah.
want to literally know what the anxiety nutritionist is eating, that she has been eating for 10 years to keep her anxiety away, there are literally 900 pictures, okay?
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Oh, oh my gosh. Yeah. And, but it's great. And like, what an easy way to like, because we're also working with business, women in business and have their own business. So what
Hmm.
an easy way to just throw a social media post out there too. I just love it. And it's so helpful because it can be such a great starting point. It can be so overwhelming. Like, where do I start? Where do I begin? And it's like, oh,
Hmm.
just go check out things that I eat and how
Yeah. And
simple
maybe
this
don't
can
look at
be.
all 900 because that'll be overwhelming.
Yeah. Just
Just
start on a
pick
couple.
Yeah, just pick one of the story bubbles and start with a
Yes.
couple, you know? But the cool thing about Chat GBT now and AI
Mhm.
is I would telling my clients this too, is if you follow people on Instagram and they post a picture of a food that you think you might like just take a screenshot of it and save it in a folder in your phone. I do this because I get inspired by the people I
Mhm.
follow as well. And then if I'm ever in like a food rut, which happens to us all,
Mhm.
right? I'll go through these saved pictures in my phone for inspiration. I go through my own eats highlights sometimes, and I'm like,
Nice.
oh, I forgot I ate that. That was
Yeah.
great. Let me do that again. But I don't know if you can do this with the free version. I have the paid version, but you can upload pictures into ChatGPT, and you can just be like, hey, like, can make me a meal plan. This is like the meals that I'm going for, and can you
Oh,
please
very
make sure
cool.
that each meal has like 30 grams of animal protein or something? And you can just upload pictures
Oh,
that you've like
wow.
snapped from people online who are sharing photos of their food, and it'll create a little meal plan for you with like the ingredients and how to make it and stuff. So,
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad you mentioned that because I was just talking of this with someone else trying to make life simpler for moms. And it's like, I bet ChatGPT would create a meal plan, give you the instructions and the shopping list, and just do it all for you if you
yeah.
put in enough information of what you wanted as well. So,
Exactly. Like you have to give it the parameters.
right, right,
Um, but I tell my clients, I'm like, there's not a lot of easy buttons in life,
right.
and this like feels like an easy button.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. And bringing that up. I absolutely love that. So, if this episode gave you even a small light bulb moment, please share it with a fellow woman who needs to hear it as well. Thanks again for listening to Moving Through Anxiety. See you next time where we keep learning to feel it, free it, and move through it together. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If this episode gave you a little light bulb moment, I'd love if you shared it with another woman in motion who's ready to move through anxiety with more grace and self-trust. And until next time, don't forget to grab my free audio series, Stop the Spiral. It's quick and it's body-based tool system to calm your mind and regulate your nervous system in 3 minutes or less. Because when you can shift from anxiety to calm in the moment, it creates the ripple effect your home and your business needs. And before you go, let me remind you, you're not broken, you're not behind, you're becoming. Let's keep moving through it together. And just one last thing, just a quick disclaimer. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice or therapy. Please reach out to a licensed provider if you need further support.